Are you ready to hoist the colors? Now, time for the most in-depth look at the world of ECU athletics. Welcome in to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game. Watch the show live on Facebook and at 943thegame.com. Now, here's your host, Stephen Igo.
Welcome in to Hoist the Colors on a Tuesday, January 14th edition of the program. The NFL wildcard playoff round wrapped up last night with the Rams beating the Minnesota Vikings. We'll discuss that and more. We've got East Carolina basketball tonight. Inside Minges Coliseum, the Pirates take on the North Texas Mean Green. Looking forward to that. North Texas quietly putting together a potential at-large resume. We'll get into that, at least from a net rankings perspective. So a big game for them as they walk into Greenville. And the Pirates need a W, and it's going to be tough, but it is doable. 3.5 is the spread. Heading into tonight's game, we'll discuss that matchup and more with Daron Vaught, ECU play-by-play basketball voice. He'll join us segment 2. Philip Pilkington is back in the 94.3 The Game studios. Philip, how is it going on this Tuesday? Unfortunately, we did not get another classic wildcard game, but either way, we wrapped up another night of football.
Yeah, we did. Kind of a rough wild card weekend overall. I mean, I'm doing good. I'm excited for ECU hoops tonight, especially after the performance that they laid down over the weekend at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. So it's still an exciting day. A lot of good sports. College basketball's on. There's a lot of great matchups tonight throughout the country. Your dogs are even excited for the game as we can hear them barking on the other end. And yeah, it was disappointing last night, and there were 5 men to blame, I think, for that blowout. They're the 5 offensive linemen of the Minnesota Vikings who allowed 82 sack yards, the most in playoff history. The previous record had been Bart Starr was sacked for 76 yards in the Ice Bowl, which the Packers obviously defeated the Dallas Cowboys in back in the 1967-68 NFL Championship game. But some of the times Bart was sacked that day, it was just him losing his footing because it was the Ice Bowl. And last night it was all them teeing off on Sam Darnold. Really an embarrassing performance by the Vikings offensive line.
Yeah, no Aaron Donald anymore, no problem. And I don't know, Philip, I feel like the Rams, it's just nobody really expected them to be very good this year. Am I wrong on that, or is it just they started so poorly that a lot of people kind of wrote them off, and all of a sudden, going into next week's game against the Eagles, I don't want to say it's a toss-up because the Eagles will be favored. They're at home. Obviously, most people pick them to win, but I could easily see them going in there and winning. For the Rams' sake, they better hope I pick the Eagles because I'm terrible at picking these games now. But I don't know. I just feel like the Rams have quietly had one of their better seasons, and Sean McVay should get a really strong look for Coach of the Year, even though I'm sure he won't get it because there are several other candidates. But just a really good year for them in a season that I don't think a lot of people really saw this coming, especially after the way they started.
Yeah, if you look at the history of the Rams under Sean McVay, consistency is not a word you use year in and year out. It always seems like they have a couple down years. Last year was one of those down years, so I think to your point, I go, yes, it's both. People thought coming in, hey, they're going to be okay. Maybe they win 10 games. I think everybody thought they were maybe a wild card contender, but didn't see them going in winning the division. Of course, we all saw San Francisco doing that. They obviously were plagued with injuries. And then on top of that, to your point with the slow start, they started, I believe it was 2-4. Puka Nacua got injured. Cooper Kupp got injured. And all of a sudden, the trade deadline comes up, and there was talk they're going to move Cooper Kupp. They are going to throw in the towel. They are going to start with a rebuild. They may be trading Matthew Stafford after the season because how do you rebuild around a 38-year-old quarterback? Well, I can't remember who it was. It actually may have been the Vikings that they went in there and beat about a week before the trade deadline, and everybody's like, well, McCaffrey's hurt. Ayuk's hurt. Debo's hurt. Maybe they can go win the West. And sure enough, they win the West. And here we are on the Tuesday after Wild Card Weekend talking about, I'm going to agree with what you said. Look, the Eagles will be favored, but that Rams team's tough to beat, especially with Puka and with Cooper Kupp. And they've already beaten the Bills this year 44-42. They don't have to win a slow, grinded-out kind of football game to beat a better football team. No, they can go out there and outscore a better football team.
Yeah, we didn't even have to see Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp's best game last night, and they still put up 27 points and win comfortably. So it'll be interesting to see going to Philly. Matthew Stafford, I still say, you don't really know what you're going to get from game to game, but if good Matt Stafford shows up, watch out because the Rams can't beat anybody. If speaking of good and bad, we got bad Sam Darnold, which again, most of that attribute to the Rams pass rush and not really having a shot. But still, Sam Darnold, I think, cost himself some money these last two games. Philip, I know, texting Dom, who's obviously part of the 94.3 The Game team, great contributor to the show, helps produce, the Patrick Johnson show, our pregame shows, etc. He's a Vikings fan. Poor guy. Great season. Comes to an end in the first round. But I did text him. I was like, at least there's some clarity now. I don't think you're going to have to worry about re-signing Sam Darnold, and you just roll forward with J.J. McCarthy, which, somebody else tweeted that Viking fans are now sharing highlights of J.J. McCarthy ripping through ECU on this morning, which is pretty funny to bring it full circle. But we'll see. I think the Vikings coaching staff is honestly so good that with McCarthy, they'll be fine. And I don't know if they'll win a Super Bowl, but they'll be back in the hunt again next year. And now you don't have to overpay Sam Darnold, at least.
You don't. So the first thing you brought up was Sam's cost himself some money. So I can't remember what website I was listening to Stephen A. this morning. Not that I listen to him much, but there was some website. And he was
big Stephen A. guy.
I know. No, I'm not really, but because he said some dumb stuff about last night's game. But whatever this website was, they project. Their whole thing is projecting how much players will get paid in the offseason. They're free agents. 2 weeks ago, Sam Darnold's projected $54 million. He's now down to $40 million. Last 2 weeks, he's cost himself $14.6 million in just projected salary. But I think you're right. I think running with JJ here, look, they're going to take a step back from this year. Look, you won 13 games or whatever it was, 14 games. You had 4 losses. 2 of them were to the Rams. 2 of them were to the Lions. You take out those games, you're undefeated. JJ McCarthy's not going to come in and do that. But to your point, there's a good defense. You got arguably the best wide receiver in the league. He's going to go out and make rookie mistakes that Sam Darnold didn't make, but no reason they're still not an 11 or 12 win team next year. And then 3-4 years down the line, we're talking about them being a Super Bowl contender.
All right, Zach Griffin in the chat says Rams drafted well on defense, and that's why they are doing so well. They are the second youngest defense and only team with a rookie defender to make the Pro Bowl, so no doubt you got to give them a lot of credit. Should be good on that side of the ball for a long time. And you got to draft well in those areas when you're paying some star-level talent like they are. Lane Smith says, oh, great, basketball talk, because ECU is just so good at basketball. Baseball can't come soon enough. Well, Lane, I believe you're the Eagles fan, so first off, we can always talk more Eagles-Rams if you want. Secondly, baseball season, Philip, is 1 month away. So soon here, really next week, we'll start getting more into baseball mode. We'll start taking a look at the roster, diving more into that. Looking forward to that. But, Lane, hey, if you want to talk anything, the chat is open. Drop any question on any topic, and we'll get to it at some point during the show. Speaking of that, right now there is the coaches convention ongoing in Charlotte for college football coaches across the country. And I shared a link with Philip Pilkington earlier today. This is a tweet from Ross Dellinger. He says, here's an interesting discussion point in Charlotte at the AFCA convention to slow the faking of injuries. Any injured player would be sidelined the rest of the drive. Coaches could use a timeout to reinstate a player. It's expected to be on the agenda at the head coaches meetings today. So again, the coaches convention ongoing. It's a dead period right now for recruiting because obviously coaches are there, not only doing job interviews, that sort of stuff, but discussing rules, proposals, and, faking injuries, especially against these hurry-up offenses, Philip, have been a topic of discussion for years now. We, I think, both have a strong take on this potential proposal. Again, the proposal, any injured player would be sidelined the rest of the drive. Coaches could use a timeout to reinstate the player. This is just discussing right now, discussion. This is not something that is being finalized, but I don't know, Philip, what's your take on this, especially as a former referee with your background?
Here's the thing. I think I get what they're coming at, and teams will use it to, like you said, slow down drives, get free timeouts. But what if we just implemented this like in the last 2 minutes of the game, or the last 5 minutes of the game? Because think about that Washington drive from the other night against Tampa. You had a 9-minute drive. You're telling me that if any player got injured in a 9-minute drive, that they can't play the rest of the drive? Now, look, I get it. The faking is getting old. You see it at the high school level. You see it at the college level. You see it at the pro level. Like, fall down. And it's bad. It's cheating. It really is. We're trying to prevent cheating. But I think the reason I'm so against it is because rules committees, and I won't go off on too long of a tangent here, have constantly been implementing stupid rules that are telling coaches how to coach the game. We're new kickoff rules, all these other dumb rules, and sometimes the rules committee just needs to, in the words of Coach Dugan,
now you start using your head. That's that lump that's 3 feet above your ass.
And sometimes they don't use it, and they come up with dumb rules. So when they come up with rules like this that might actually make sense, it's just like, quit making rules. Okay, football has been football for 100 years now. We're making a bunch of stupid rules. Quit telling coaches how to coach the game. I mean, yes, quit faking injuries, but if he wants to sub a guy back in who's been hurt, let him go back in the game.
And I agree with your point, Philip. It's just, can't we at least find a happy medium here? Like, I don't have a problem with the rule where if your helmet pops off in the field of play, you've got to sit out one play. Maybe if you're injured, you have to sit out 2 to 3 plays. I don't know. A whole drive, I agree. It seems a little egregious. Because what if your quarterback gets his shoulder dinged up on the first play of a drive on like a quarterback power or scramble? You can't put him back in the rest of the drive? I mean, it's just then you have the issue if you do this, Philip, you could have a player get legitimately hurt or suffer an ankle, twist his ankle, and all of a sudden he doesn't want to come out of the game because he's not going to be able to go back the rest of the drive. He could get hurt worse. So you could end up making this rule, to prevent teams from faking injuries, which I understand, but you could end up having guys be injured more seriously as a result.
Because the rules committee doesn't use their head. I mean, that's the problem. Everything you're saying, Igo, you're thinking about it from a logical standpoint. They don't. They see a problem and they say, let's fix it. Well, what happens when you fix a problem without thinking of your consequences? You create 17 more problems. So, good, we fixed one. Now we've created 17. It's dumb. It goes back to the kickoff rule. It goes back to so many other rules that have been implemented over the last 5 to 10 years when the rules committees have gotten rules happy. Come on. I mean, figure it out. How hard is it to use your head, the thing that's 3 feet above your rear end?
Apparently pretty hard with the rules committee, definitely with college football as a whole, as it just continues to devolve in ways that we didn't think possible 5 to 10 years ago. But at least the games are still great, and I get an email every day from ESPN, the press room, about how great the ratings are. So that's really all they care about with this college football playoff. Ron Cole says Lane Kiffin is planning to veto that idea in the quickest way possible. Obviously, he's been criticized of the faking of injuries. So I don't know. So your proposal, Philip, is to just leave it as is rather than change it, or would you be fine with a happy medium?
Because of all the new dumb rules, my gut says leave it be. But if you're going to do it, happy medium. Either it's X amount of plays or it's in the last X amount of minutes of the game so that you don't have the guys faking injuries to get a free timeout or whatever. But like you said, the quarterback takes a shot and they run him into the blue tent to, look at his shoulder. He goes over there, he throws 2 passes on the sidelines, says, hey, you know what, it feels good enough to go back in, and now you're telling me you can't go back in the rest of the drive? Like, a quarterback isn't faking an injury. I mean, we've got to use a little logic here. So, and I hate to say, well, it's one thing for one position and one thing for another, but I don't know, maybe you make it a defensive-only thing, but then to your point, what you said earlier, if a guy gets slightly dinged up and needs a quick tape job, does he not come out because he's going to have to miss the rest of the drive? And like we said, that Washington and Tampa had a 9-minute drive the other day. I mean, that's now you're looking at over 1/8 of the football game was played on that drive, and you're telling a guy he can't play 1/8 of the football game because he got injured because we're going to create a stupid rule where if you get hurt you can't play the rest of the darn drive. I mean, happy medium at worst, but definitely not this extreme.
No doubt. We will see how it plays out and see if there's any ruling on that or further discussion at the coaches' convention. All right, we'll get a break in. When we come back, we'll continue to talk Pirate basketball. Hosting a big game against North Texas inside Minji's Coliseum tonight. We'll have Daron Vaught, ECU play-by-play voice on the other side. This is Hoist the Colors on a Tuesday.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you farm to fork beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to fork beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
Living easy is the sound of children laughing as you make memories with neighbors and friends. It's the sound of nothing at all. It's the smell of the salt air. Hear the waters against the marsh grass. See the beauty of our coast. Bow Coast, located in Beaufort, North Carolina. Southern Living's best small town.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked to order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Sawyer's Fun Park in Winterville is now open. With over 40,000 square feet of family fun, daily money-saving deals, and a full-service restaurant, Sawyer's Fun Park is guaranteed to have something the whole family will love. Test your ninja skills on our 2-story obstacle course or head over to one of our 5 rock walls and race your friends to the top. And when you've worked up an appetite in our laser tag arena or our one-of-a-kind ropes course, grab a table over at the restaurant and try our world-famous Southern Monster Fries. Reserve your spot today at SawyersFunPark.com and come join in on the fun.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human, about creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
Everything you need to know in the world of ECU athletics. This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back into the show. Tuesday, January 14th edition of Hoist the Colors. Philip Pilkington producing today's program. We also have a new guest who is hanging on. He will be calling ECU basketball tonight against North Texas. He is Daron Vaught, play-by-play voice for Pirate Hoops. Daron, how's it going, man?
Steven, I'm great, man. How are you guys?
Doing good. And obviously wanted to dive into the matchup tonight with you, Daron. But first, I do want to ask, year 2 of doing play-by-play for East Carolina. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience overall doing play-by-play. But just getting back into the role for a second straight year, how much have you kind of enjoyed this gig? And obviously some comfort now with the coaching staff, some of the players. How much have you enjoyed year 2?
Yeah, I think between years 1 and 2, it obviously gets a lot more comfortable as you start to build that rapport with coaching staff, players, support staff around the team. I will say, too, we all know the circumstances around the voice of Pirates roles, as Jim Zoki and I kind of share that, him on football, me on men's basketball. When I agreed to do this before last season, I was under the impression that it was, and I think everybody was at the time, that it was just going to be kind of a one and done thing. So it's a nice, pleasant thing that I'm back for year 2. And, I think that this is probably relatable in other circumstances for others, those listening or watching, that, when you no longer are on sort of like an interim basis, really, you feel a little bit less like a visitor. So it's been a much more comfortable role for me this season with that in mind. Some obvious changes from year one to year two in that, like, Coach Michael Perry got added to the staff, so he can no longer be my radio analyst. And that's a bit of a different job. It's still, look, I'm not, laying brick or anything like that. It's still a cake job to call basketball. I just got to do it solo now and not with a guy that I had built up a good relationship with both on and off the air and had become a friend and is still a friend. Obviously, I see him all the time. I just can't look at him after witnessing whatever it is on the basketball court and making a joke or asking for his thoughts. But that said, no, it's been a joy, man. The guys are a lot of fun to be around. This is a good team. You guys have heard, whether it be a joke to you or not, about the attitude and just kind of the vibes around this program. Like 10 out of 10. I will co-sign that. The vibes are great, and it's a great group to be with.
Yeah, Daron, I was going to ask, calling a game with a color guy is tough enough, but calling one solo, maybe at basketball, at least you always have some action for the most part. So that probably helps. It's not like baseball where there's just a lot of dead time. But how much of an adjustment is that from year one to year two? And I don't know, do you ever yell down the bench to get Coach Perry's thought mid-game? I don't know, to try to pick his brain a little bit?
I usually grab him before every game. And we'll yuck it up on the road some too, see each other in the team hotel and stuff like that. You can ask Philip because he produces a lot of these games. More than anything, I just need somebody to talk to. So I chat down the line while we're in commercial break a lot more. Right, it's maybe talking football with him, in the under 4 media timeout, just because I'm feeling a need for that human connection. I know I'm talking to all of Pirate Nation who's listening when I'm doing a game, but it's a 1-to-1 sort of thing that you miss out on without a color analyst. And again, I've done it plenty in the past. It's not that different. Largely the game stays the same. It's just a lot more sort of me letting it breathe, whereas that would be a pocket of time in which I normally would let Coach Perry in on the mix and let him give his thoughts, that sort of thing. But you're right, with basketball these days, the pace, which will be a little bit different tonight with North Texas, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. The pace kind of dictates what you talk about. I don't have a lot of time to editorialize or just pontificate on nonsense as I would with, you're right, a baseball broadcast, doing that solo.
I will say that is another thing. Daron mentioned year two, and I think he and I got along really good last year, and we were, but it was still kind of a working relationship. Whereas I feel like now we've become more friends. We hang out before games if I'm in the arena, and it makes that conversation, like you're saying, between timeouts, it's just like two guys sitting at a bar having a beer, but it just happens to be between timeouts. We talk ECU basketball. Like you said, we'll talk NFL football. He'll be like, hey, what's going on with other games around the country? What's going on with the Hurricanes? And we just chat it up, man. My favorite times are TV or media timeouts.
Yeah. Or a lot of
what do we have to do to hear those conversations?
No. I will say I'll add one more subject matter. Philip, being a product of the Charlotte area, knows that I do high school football in that area. So, when there's overlap at the beginning of the basketball season, I'm nearing the end of my football season. We're talking high school football as well. So no, I mean, it's a blast. It's a blast. It's one of those things where, you wish the Pirates would win more games. I think we all do. But it's still fun for me. It's tough for me to complain. I care if they win, but at the end of the day, it beats laying brick. I'm still calling basketball.
No doubt about that. East Carolina in action tonight. North Texas. We'll break down that game in a little bit. Just your overall thoughts on the season thus far, Daron. 9-8 overall, and look, it's been a tough stretch. They've had to face one of the tougher stretches in the league. They're also facing a bunch of teams that are getting extra time to prepare, which seems kind of I don't know, not how you would draw it up if you're the conference, but that's the hand ECU's dealt. So your thoughts on the season to this point, some inconsistency, but there's no doubt the guys are playing hard and giving their all every night.
Yeah, I mean, you can't mistake the effort, the heart, these guys are going to make it tough on anybody they play. And they showed that especially over the weekend at Memphis in a game that, was tied twice throughout the game, 0-0 and 68-68 with a minute 11 left, right? They just stayed in it. They fought. And that's arguably one of the more talented teams in the country that Penny Hardaway has. I think there's some general disappointment, right? I mean, it happens when you've got some games like North Alabama and Gardner-Webb that you drop at home. Not that there haven't been bright spots. Double overtime victory over George Mason is still a great win when you look at all the necessary things that compile a team's resume. Certainly North Texas, number 58, I believe, in the net rankings as we speak tonight, is a pretty big opportunity. So there's room for it to turn around. But I don't know. If I was a Pirate fan, it's a product I would still be proud of in a lot of ways. RJ Felton has seemingly gotten his groove back. He's back-to-back double-doubles for the second time this season and is playing really, really well. Honorable mention, American Athletic Conference honors this week. And there are certainly some bright spots. Again, there's the disappointments, there's bright spots. It's been kind of a roller coaster of a year. That 7-1 start certainly has gave us a lot of hope entering this last more disappointing stretch. But there's a lot of season left, man. College basketball season is a long one, and the light at the end of the tunnel is a conference tournament. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a chance that the team can figure it out in time for a conference tournament. You haul off a win there, and then next thing you know, who knows? Maybe the Pirates are a tournament team. There are possibilities to look forward to, for sure.
And Daron, I was, looking at the schedule when they started conference play, and I knew it would be difficult. And I think, even Temple was better than I originally anticipated they would be. And looking at some of these other teams, North Texas, I knew they would be good, but with the roster turnovers, didn't know they'd be this good. Tough road trip coming up at Wichita and Tulsa as far as travel, but those look like winnable games. Then you get USF at home, Temple, Rice, UTSA. So, I feel like if they can survive this stretch, which, if you win tonight, that obviously would be a big deal, but just keep it together. I do think there are some winnable games coming up. Would you kind of agree with that assessment?
Yeah, and it's tough to tell a fan base, like, okay, look, a team would be okay if they start 0-6 in conference play. But I think it would – you alluded to the way the schedule laid out. Look, I don't think Pirate fans are all that disappointed if ECU is like dead in the middle of the American Athletic Conference. It just so happens that 5 of their first 6 conference games are against, at the time that the conference schedule started, the top 5 ranked teams in the American. And then, we began conference play against Southern Florida or South Florida. And I'm sure they hate that. I know how ECU fans get with the Eastern thing. So with USF, that's the defending regular season champs from a season ago. So you've got the defending regular season champions, at the time, top 5 teams in the conference as far as, the all-encompassing metrics are concerned. So like net rankings, KenPom, that was all true of the first 6 opponents for the Pirates. And then some of those are on the road, right? Like going to a ranked Memphis team is not an easy task. At Wichita, I mean, the Pirates won there last year, but that's a daunting place to play a conference game. And then you do sort of the back-to-back travel and have some of those complications as well. It's not a particularly easy schedule. So again, I don't mean to say that, Pirate fans should be pleased if it's an 0-6 start in conference play, or now that we've got the Temple win, it's not going to be the case, or like a 1-5 start in conference. But just kind of understand the bigger picture, that there's some greater circumstances at play there. And Tulsa, you mentioned on the tail end of this stretch, is certainly beatable. And then, you get into the back half of the conference schedule and you start playing teams for a second time, and all bets are off, because that's when you get the chance to make adjustments and prepare differently for teams that you've seen already this season. And assumedly these first rounds are going to be pretty close games with the Pirates, because it just seems like the Pirates make games close. I would just, I would advise Pirate fans to just kind of be patient with it this year.
Daron Vaught with us, play-by-play announcer for ECU basketball and the ECU Sports Network. And Daron, this team, look, I mean, they let's just be honest, they struggle to shoot the basketball. I think they're like 350 or so out of 364 teams in three-point shooting percentage. I do feel like they've done a better job recently of just trying to get out in transition as much as possible and trying to get to the free throw line and rebounding. That's just how they're going to have to win games. So I don't know. Mike Schwartz has typically been a more slower paced coach, defensive first coach, but it feels like this year he wants his team to get out and run because that's their strengths. And do you feel like that's how this team is going to have to win basketball games going forward consistently?
I think so. And if you look at the past two games in particular, which I think we can all say, we're pretty pleased with the performance. A win against Temple, pushing a ranked Memphis team on the road, yet losing. If you look at those two games, a combined 50 fast break points between those two games. I mean, that is a high mark. It's a small sample size, but a very, very high mark. The rebounding we've obviously seen pay off for the Pirates, especially on the offensive boards. Part of that is a little bit skewed because you're able to grab more offensive rebounds when you miss more shots, as the Pirates have this season. And I know Coach Schwartz really believes that this could be a pretty good three-point shooting team. At some point, the sample becomes the sample, and it's what you've got to work with, though. And up to this point, they haven't been. So I think it would be a perfectly fine strategy to try to minimize three-point shot attempts and instead try to push tempo and get easy, close shots for two, because those advanced metrics, and Coach Schwartz has preached this all year, inside those closer transition metrics, the Pirates have actually, I know people see a missed layup one time and they lose their minds about, fundamentals or what have you. The Pirates are a very efficient team when they get it in transition, despite some of the outliers you may see and may come to mind, right? So I do think it would behoove them to become a little bit more of a push the tempo team. I think that's certainly what we've seen as the case. I think sitting back in more zone defense has made that easier to do for the Pirates. We've seen, Jordan Riley goes out and picks off a pass out to the wing and it turns into an easy layup on the other end. The steals have more frequently turned into points out of a man-to-man and into a zone, just because the guys are squared up toward their own basket. You can better react to a loose ball, right? Does that make sense? You're kind of dropped back on it and you can just go rather than worrying about, okay, my guy's covered. Where's the ball? You're turning around to try to find it. There's less of that when you play that zone defense and cause a turnover. So I think stylistically, they're coming into their own. Like the Pirates are figuring out and have been figuring out exactly what they need to be most competitive. And I think you're spot on, Stephen. Like part of that is you got to get the basketball and you got to push it. Cause like we know the Pirates have the athletes to do that. And we've seen it work in many spots this year.
Couple things more for you, Daron, before we let you go. North Texas again tonight, one of the top teams in the league by a lot of metrics. And we just talked about tempo. They are ranked 360th in tempo by KenPom out of 364 teams. So they are going to grind it to a halt. That's the style they want to play. We just mentioned what ECU wants to do. How do you see this matchup playing out tonight, just in terms of their style versus what ECU wants to try and accomplish?
It's a super interesting contrast. We've seen the other side of the spectrum as Pirate opponents this year, like some of the top paced teams, the teams that want to get as many possessions as possible. North Texas is very much the opposite. You mentioned it, the fifth fewest possessions per game of any team in the country. That's by design. And you'll see it's an interesting – I was looking through the stats as I did my prep for this game, Stephen, and, they've got these players who – they come from other programs. Like that's not uncommon, right? We've seen week after week, the opponents for the Pirates feature a handful of guys who are on their third schools or what have you. That's not the surprise. The surprise is most of these North Texas guys who have played a lot of college basketball and are mostly seniors, their rotation is very, very experienced. They really only play 8 guys consistently. All of them are seniors except for 2 juniors. That's it. That's their rotation. Most of them have played for other programs, probably, in the Power 4, the Autonomous 4, however you want to put it. So those guys come to North Texas and they see minutes decreases, yet better production. It's really interesting what this program has done. And I say that to iterate that efficiency is the name of their game. Their bet that they are making every time they take the floor is, we are going to shrink the game and have both teams get as few possessions as possible. Our bet, what we are gambling on, is that we are going to make more of our shots than you. And again, honestly speaking, given the way the percentages have gone for the Pirates as of late, I mean, that's a pretty decent bet, especially with some of the field goal percentages on this North Texas team. So they're going to slow it down. They're going to run full sets. They're going to take up a ton of the shot clock. It's going to be a much slower paced game, kind of old school, certainly a style you don't see a lot in college basketball anymore. And just as an example, they're coming off of a win against Rice. They took 49 field goal attempts in that game and still beat Rice by 12, by double digits. A double-digit win, you didn't even put up 50 shots from the field. It's remarkable. It is bizarre. It is their own unique way of playing. And to put that in perspective, the Pirates and the Tigers at Memphis the other night put up 61 field goal attempts each in that game. So again, this was a game 2. Remember, came down to the final second against North Texas in Minji's last year. We thought R.J. Felton had it with a few seconds to go. He hit the mid-range jumper, and then they had that full-court heave, turnaround, bank in from the block as time expired. That was to make it 60-59, to give you an idea, in case you had forgotten, to give you an idea of how slow, how low-scoring the Mean Green want to make this game. It'll be interesting. I think, especially given the new emphasis for ECU to really push the tempo when they get it, I'll be interested to see if that is in fact the strategy for the Pirates. Okay, let's get a defensive rebound and let's beat them to the other side of the floor and not let them get set up in a half court, because that's where they're dangerous.
And the tough thing too is they're 44th in defensive efficiency. And when you don't get a lot of possessions and they're not letting you score, it's really easy to get frustrated too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's going to be a big contrast in styles tonight. And you're right. I mean, they're old, even though they're a newer roster. They have a culture there. They have a style, and they've stuck to it. You know, obviously their old coach went to Texas Tech. They promoted from within, and they've kept that style going with big success. Last thing for you, Daron, because we're running short on time, but awesome interview today. I know ECU fans obviously getting to know you as the basketball play-by-play voice. I know you're involved in a lot of other things, including D1 baseball. Kind of share what else you do in the sports industry, so if ECU fans want to hear more, they can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I caught on with D1 baseball last year. Danny Graves, former Cincinnati Reds closer, he's a Reds Hall of Famer, University of Miami Hurricanes Hall of Famer. Gravy and I co-host an ACC baseball podcast for D1 baseball. It's called ACC Baseball, etc. If you have any interest at all. I know that's not the Pirates conference, but would love if you would subscribe or just give us a chance and listen. We talk a lot of general baseball, so it can be a lot of fun. And in a lot of cases, ECU plays ACC teams in midweeks or even weekend series, so there might be some useful stuff in there for you. D1, as of a couple of years ago, started streaming their own events. There's a group called Peak Events that runs some early season baseball tournaments, and I've had the fortune to do play-by-play with Kyle Peterson on a couple of those in the past couple of years. So I'll be back there at the Jacksonville Baseball Classic this year to do that one. NC State Wolfpack, Coastal Carolina are in those. If you want to maybe scout the enemy, on a couple of occasions if you're a Pirates fan. So a lot with D1 baseball. I've got a narrative podcast that I've been working on that's going to come out with them January 27th. I mentioned earlier when talking to Philip, I do some high school football in the Charlotte area and sometimes down into South Carolina as well. Some big Pirate performances in the Shrine Bowl of the Carolinas, which I was on. One of the few times that I have to miss a Pirates game. That was the same day as the Gardner-Webb game, and Jim Szoke filled in for me there. But the Shrine Bowl, a couple years running now, and man, I freelance full time, so it's hard to tell where you'll see me. Right, about once a week I'll be on the North Carolina Education Lottery drawing. See me host that. Fun thing to have game show host on my resume. And sporting events wherever, right? It's kind of one of those things. It's you piece it together season to season, maybe sometimes week to week, and do what I can. But I again, I make a living off of it, so it's pretty awesome.
Well, awesome to have you on today, Daron, and we'll try and get you back on regularly going forward, man. I really enjoyed the interview, and we'll definitely have you on. Basketball, it is a long season. It's a grind, and so we'll get you back on, man, talk about the Pirates, hopefully with some more wins to discuss. But appreciate it as always, man.
I would love that, Steven. Some more wins, some more visits to hoist the colors for sure. Appreciate you guys.
All right, that is Daron Vaught, play-by-play voice, East Carolina basketball. We'll get a break in. We'll come back. Philip and I will break down this matchup further and more. This is Hoist the Colors.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Looking for a great deal on a new Nissan?
At Greenville Nissan, we've got a great selection of new Nissans for under $30,000.
The stylish Nissan Sentra, offering top-notch fuel economy. The Nissan Altima, known for its comfort and technology.
The Nissan Kicks, the perfect combination with its compact design and performance. The Nissan Versa, delivering incredible value without compromising on features. And don't forget the Nissan Rogue, an award winner for 10 years in a row. Drive it home just for $22 down and $349 a month.
Visit GreenvilleNissan.com today.
Greenville Nissan, where we drive to serve.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers does real burgers better than anybody. And don't forget about the cheese sticks, fresh salads, and more. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, burgers and sports at its best.
Go Pirates! Arg!
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's cut in color. And let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
We're live with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Hoist the Johnny Roger!
Now, back to Hoist the Colors.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors. Philip Pilkington producing. We just talked to Daron Vaught, ECU. Basketball play-by-play voice. He'll be on the call tonight, East Carolina, North Texas. We were talking about the matchup, Philip, pre-show, and obviously with Daron as well. And I think really interested to see how East Carolina attacks this game. Johnny Robertson with a good comment in the YouTube chat. He says the Pirates have had a recent resurgence in free throw shooting, making 75.5% in the past 2 games. That, of course, after the abysmal free throw shooting performance against FAU, which cost them a win before that. He says CJ is 15 of 17 during that stretch. Speaking of CJ Walker, and he adds that could be key tonight as both of these teams get to the line often. North Texas shooting 78% from the line as a team, which is a good number. And like Daron said, they're just a winning team. They don't, they know their game. They're efficient. They don't force shots. And ECU is going to have to not only find the balance of trying to push it when they can tonight to counteract that style, but they can't take bad shots either because you're going to have limited possessions. It's almost like facing an option team if you're a spread offense like ECU has in football right now, a fast tempo offense. So really interested to see how this matchup plays out.
It's kind of like playing Virginia back in the day of Tony Bennett when they were in their heyday, I think is the way to put it as well from a basketball standpoint. And the tough thing for East Carolina tonight is it's a lot easier to slow a team down than it is to speed a team up. So to your point, North Texas does what they do, and they do it well because it's a lot harder to speed basketball teams up. The one thing that ECU has done over the last few games has been really good is we talk about their pace of play, but their pace of play has come off defensive rebounds. And that is the one thing, even if you're a slow-paced basketball team, if the opponent gets a rebound and gets the ball out in transition and they're efficient that way, there's not much you can do as a slow-paced team. Now, this team, they're pretty good in offensive efficiency, 101st in the country, averaging 110 points per 100 possessions, which is pretty good. But when they're a slow-paced team, if you can get out in transition a couple times and steal a couple possessions, to your point, Igo, it keeps those where if you do have a couple bad shots, you do have a couple empty possessions, maybe that can kind of counteract that. So you can't do it, or you can't take bad shots. You can't be inefficient in general, but there's a little leeway for error if you can steal a couple possessions in transition, which, again, you're not going to have as many tip passes and steals as you want against a slow-paced team, but if you can do it via the rebound, maybe you open some opportunities for yourself.
North Texas, speaking of their offensive efficiency, put up 81 points in the win over Rice last Wednesday. They put up 64 in a 68-64 loss to Memphis, beat UAB 78-75, beat Houston Christian 62-46, beat Appalachian State 68-64. A lot of scores in the low 70s to the mid 60s for a. They've had a couple wins, like over Oregon State, they beat 58-55, and then they had a win at Minnesota, Philip, 54-51. So they can win games in the 50s, they can win games in the 70s. I guess if you're East Carolina, you want to at least get to the mid 60s today. Obviously, how you play defensively will dictate a lot of that. We know they lost, of course, the close game 60-59, as Daron mentioned, in Minji's last year. I think if you get to the mid 60s, you feel pretty good about this game unless they just shoot lights out.
Yeah, and the good thing is if they shoot lights out, they're still not going to heat up as quickly as some other teams do. But to your point, yes, you still don't want them to go out there and hit 12 of 21 threes or something like that. And to the point of whoever it was that typed in about the free throws, the FAU game was kind of an anomaly. If you look at it, this team actually shot free throws pretty good, and that's why he mentioned the word resurgence, because there already was good free throw shooting, and now it's come back. So I think as long as you don't leave points at the line, as long as you just don't allow them to just have open threes, which to ECU's credit, a lot of the teams who've even hit a lot of threes against them this year have done it contestedly. They defend the three pretty well from an efficiency standpoint. It's just a matter of whether or not they're falling for the opponent. So I think this is one you can keep close. Like I said, if you can get up 65, maybe even 70, you feel really good. You just don't want to try and win a 55-51 game because you're probably going to come out on the losing end of a scoreline like that.
No doubt they're used to playing that style. All right, we got to get our final break in. We'll come back. We'll set up the rest of the week from a coverage standpoint. Got some big interviews coming your way. We'll also wrap up the show. After this is Hoist the Colors on the Tuesday.
The team of Flatlands Jessup is working overtime to help ensure that Eastern North Carolinians like you get the health insurance help you need this open enrollment period. New legislation passed, meaning more people than ever qualify for affordable coverage. Let us help you today.
This holiday season, get the gift you really want at Greenville Toyota. It's our holiday trade-up. Drive a new Corolla, just $229 a month, or a new Tacoma, only $329 a month, during the holiday trade-up at Greenville Toyota.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
Hey, on the mountain we've got a saying. Get off your... Show off.
Mountain Dew.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers does real burgers better than anybody. And don't forget about the cheese sticks, fresh salads, and more. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, burgers and sports at its best.
Everybody loves tiebreakers.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master. Unwrap a new Toyota for the holidays at Greenville Toyota. It's our holiday trade-up. Get a new Camry, $269 a month, or a new RAV4, $329 a month. Trade up and save at Greenville Toyota.
Tired of the 1-800 numbers advertising Medicare products? Flatlands Jessup has 6 offices all throughout Eastern North Carolina. Get face-to-face help from our local award-winning licensed team. Stop by today. Flatlands Jessup, your whole world covered.
Climb aboard as we set sail and hoist the colors.
Arr, matey!
Back to the show with Steve and I go on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors, final segment here on this Tuesday. Lane Smith in the chat. Philip Pilkington behind the glass. Lane, Philip, he does not want to talk anymore ECU basketball. He wants to know, is there a Cliff Godwin episode coming up? Lane, there is not a Cliff Godwin episode in the immediate future. I can't guarantee that. What I can guarantee is someday soon we will have ECU Baseball Media Day. And I tell you what, Philip, we don't really know. We know a little bit about this team, but we don't know a lot about this baseball team. We're a month away from first pitch. Lane wants to talk baseball. How about next week, daily, we start going down the roster, at least one player per day. We're going to have to do multiple players on some day. And we're going to tell you a little bit and learn ourselves about every player on the ECU baseball roster starting next week. How about that? We'll do at least one player a day, some days 2, some days 3, depending on what our guest list looks like. So we'll go through their recruitment, their stats, their expected role. How about that, Philip? Will that make the people happy?
I think it'll make the people happy, and that works for me because I need to be a little more informed. I kind of know the gist, but I probably need to know more about each player, and then also that gives me some homework to do in the mornings before the show. So if Michael's asking me to help him with something, I can say, I've got to do this research for IGO show. Sorry, can't help. So use me as an excuse to focus more on sports. So I'm all for it, baby. Let's go.
Exactly. Just looking down this roster. And first off, we want to give you as many excuses as possible not to help Michael because he has you doing some crazy stuff sometimes. But, yeah, I mean, there's some of these guys. Look, I follow baseball recruiting to an extent, not as much as basketball and football, but I'm going to have to ask some of my sources, like, what are we expecting here? You got more than 40 guys on the roster. Now, you can only have 40 active players, so a few of these players will probably be redshirting or injured, so we'll have to get into that with some of my sources. But, like, next week, our first player, we're going to go in numerical order. Keenan Bowman's going to be our first player, redshirt freshman, and so we'll dive into him. Number
I'm
0.
excited to talk about him, honestly.
Yeah.
I think he's got a decent
he's
ceiling.
got a chance to have a breakout year.
He does.
Yep. And with this program, you never know who's going to come out of nowhere, because we see it every year, and so that will kind of make this fun. So I hope that makes you happy, Lane, and hopefully your Eagles lose to the Rams. No offense, this Sunday. All right, we're just about out of time, and I do want to give you guys a heads up. So Wednesday, we are going to have in studio live Noah Joseph, the new general manager for ECU football. So if you got any questions, let him either tweet at me or drop it in the chat. I'll let him know during the course of the hour he's on the air. We're also going to have the new strength coach, Mike Serignano, on Thursday. And then Friday, of course, we'll have Bobby Harward in studio talking playoffs. So there's the next few days. Thanks again to Philip Pilkington behind the glass. Always does a great job, whether he's producing games on 94.3, The Game, or doing this show with the Patrick Johnson Show. Appreciate Daron Vaught as well. He'll be on the call tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern tip-off against North Texas. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon talking ECU football.
This has been Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo. Tune in weekdays at noon for all things ECU sports. Get a recap of the show at 943thegame.com.